Welcome to Sizzle Fantasy Sports, the channel with the most sizzling hot fantasy takes and analysis, presented by your host, Gavin.
Rodgers clean pocket, throws the middle of the end zone. Devontae, touchdown, and a dagger!
How's it going, you guys? Welcome back to the SFS channel. My name's Gavin, and today Eric and I are going to be giving you guys our first NFL mock draft for the 2021 season. This will not be a fantasy style video, but rather we are just projecting some team needs and the guys that we think are going to land in various places during the NFL draft. So if you guys are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. And if you guys have been around here, support the SFS brand by going over to Patreon and becoming a member and support the brand for as little as $1 a month. So let's not waste any more time and let's get right into the first round. All right, with the number one overall pick here, we've got no shocker to any of you guys. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence for pretty much 3 years now has been the consensus top pick for the 2021 draft class. Obviously, he was a stud at Clemson. He is the most NFL-ready quarterback. And for a franchise in Jacksonville, obviously a new head coach, a new coaching regime, they're looking for a fresh start. Trevor Lawrence has elite arm talent. He's also very athletic. He is going to be a success in the NFL. And he's going into a spot with a decent O-line. He's got DJ Chark, Laviska Shenault, and he's got a nice supporting cast. So I think he'll find some success here. Trevor Lawrence, number one overall pick.
Yeah, I like that they do actually have some pieces on that team. The Jags really aren't that bad on offense. Their defense is really a big issue, but they can stay in games if they have a great QB like that. We like James Robinson. I would like to see them get another piece on the offense possibly. Otherwise, that defense needs to be bolted up if they're going to turn into a contending team.
Right. I think this season what we expect is probably like the Bengals last year. Joe Burrow was very productive with them, but the defense, they're still missing pieces. They're not going to be contenders this year. At the number 2 spot, we've got Rashawn Slater. Tell us about your favorite tackle in the draft class.
Rashawn Slater this might be kind of a surprise to some of you. He's not Penei Sewell. He's not as athletic as Penei Sewell, but he has the technique that is better than any of the tackles in the draft, and that's a big deal in the NFL. He's got size, of course. They're in college football for a reason. They're bigger guys. They're going to be able to move guys around no matter what. So with that technique, comboed with his size, it's just a little higher for me than Penei Sewell. He doesn't have, again, the athleticism, but in the NFL, he should translate well.
Right, and obviously being the number 2 spot, he is still athletic, but Penei Sewell is just on such another level in terms of his athleticism for a big guy. Rashawn Slater is the most NFL-ready tackle right now, and that's a huge deal. The Jets' O-line has been atrocious for years. Sam Darnold has no pass pro. They really aren't run blocking that effectively either. So they need a player who can bolster that O-line on the other side of Mekhi Becton. Slater goes 6'3", 305 pounds, and he was very, very effective against Chase Young in 2019. So obviously a very good NFL prospect in Chase Young and a guy who might win Defensive Rookie of the Year. So I think that Rashawn Slater going number 2 here would not be a shocker. I think he fills a huge hole on that Jets roster. At the number 3 spot, we've got Devontae Smith of the Alabama Crimson Tide heading to Miami, reuniting with Tua Tagovailoa. Obviously, those two at Alabama were very productive, and they were very, very elite. So Devontae Smith, I think he adds a lot of versatility to that offense in Miami. They need a field stretcher, and I have been saying this. I think Tua needs a guy who's a better route runner than what he has right now. Devontae Parker, Preston Williams, even Jakeem Grant and some of those other guys, they're not route runners. They're either just deadbeat sprinters that fly down the field and are gadget playmakers. Otherwise, the other guys are jump ball and red zone players. So Devontae Smith, I think, adds another dynamic to that offense.
Yeah, they need another fast guy that can run those routes. Jakeem Grant's fine, but he's kind of a gadget. He's not as much of a complete receiver. The one issue with Devontae Smith, as everyone will say, is he's 174 pounds, and he did not report his weight recently, which could be a concern. That means maybe he lost some weight, and he's not wanting that to hurt his draft stock. But here I like reuniting him with Tua.
Yeah, and then at number 4, we've got Zach Wilson of BYU heading to Atlanta. Eric, I know you love this pick. Zach Wilson, I think, is one of the most talented players in this draft class at the quarterback position. But not only that, I think he is behind Trevor Lawrence, one of the most NFL-ready guys. The plays I see him make outside the pocket and on the move are very, very incredible. His deep ball is effortless, and his spiral is very tight and clean. I think that there's a lot of things that Zach Wilson has going for him, and he would probably get to sit behind Matt Ryan, which I think would be a huge bonus to his development.
I think that most QBs should sit behind a veteran before they start in the NFL. I think that he would be able to play right away. But if he sat behind a vet like Matt Ryan, he's one of the better quarterbacks that's been around in the last 10 years. He's very consistent. He throws for so many yards. Clearly he's had good receivers, but he's just a very solid QB. Of course he's declining a little bit, but he will be able to guide Zach Wilson and show him the reins to run a very strong offense. The Falcons are usually a decent offense, and I would love to see him use Calvin Ridley there and have some nice targets, because at BYU he didn't really have the best guys to work with, but if he gets some really good NFL talent and some good blocking, I think he could be Josh Allen-esque. He maybe doesn't have the same arm, but he's a playmaker, which would be really good for the Falcons.
Right. Atlanta spent 2 first-round picks last season or 2 seasons ago on offensive linemen. I would say inheriting Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley is a huge plus for any rookie quarterback. And if Atlanta can get a run game back together, obviously last year it struggled a bit, and that hurt their passing offense in turn because they weren't very dynamic. They were predictable. I think this guy can have a lot of success. Dome team, they're indoors, so that's obviously great for having track meets on the offensive side of the ball. I think this is a win-win for both sides. At number 5, we've got one of the other probably consensus picks. I think that we expected the Bengals to be picking a little bit higher, but they ended up managing to upset Pittsburgh with Ryan Finley, no Joe Burrow. And they ended up creeping back to number 5 here. Penei Sewell, obviously, I think is most people's number 1 tackle on the board, but we've got him falling to the Bengals here, falling at number 5, right? Yeah. Penei Sewell, super athletic. This guy has the mold to be one of those elite generational pass blockers. He's excellent in the run game, highly athletic for his size. I mean, he's just a monster at 6'6", 331, so he's a mauler. He's going to be huge for Joe Burrow. The one thing that just killed him was how much he got sacked, and I think that you have to make this move and go out and get a top-tier O-lineman if you're Cincinnati.
Yeah, he's very athletic. He's got the size. His technique could use some work, which is why we had Slater higher. But if you put him on that line, it'll really help Joe Burrow, even if he's just holding for a few more seconds. That's all it takes for Joe Burrow to make a play. So getting a guy that's going to develop into a good tackle, one of the better tackles, is what I see him doing.
Yeah.
I think he can develop, just coach him up with that great frame and athleticism. I think he'll be a very good tackle in the NFL.
Right, 100%. At 6 here, we've got Jamar Chase, and actually some big breaking news about the Philadelphia Eagles. It is reported via Adam Schefter that the Eagles might have Carson Wentz on the move by the end of the week. And obviously that can increase the draft capital that Philadelphia has here. I don't think they're going to move out of the number 6 pick or even move up because they have Jalen Hurts, who I think will be quarterbacking for that team next year. But we could see them get some extra firepower in the back end of the draft, acquire maybe another first-round pick, and some decent value for a quarterback who was once highly regarded in the league and was on pace to an MVP season, obviously the year they won the Super Bowl. So Jamar Chase, though, here at number 6, this guy, he is my wide receiver 1 on the board. I don't think he will be the first wide receiver off the board, or at least I think that's a very real reality. But I think going to Philadelphia here, they spent a first-round pick on Jalen Reagor last season. I think they could double up here and go back for Chase because I think after 1 year of watching Reagor's skill set, I'm not so sure that he's a pure alpha wide receiver 1, but more of a high-level wide receiver 2 who could have a lot of his game opened up by Jamar Chase.
Yeah, he's a very strong receiver. He's very physical. Doesn't have that elite speed, but he makes up for it with his great route running, one of the best in his class in route running. He should be a very good piece right away.
Yeah, and for a team like Philadelphia that's deprived of talent at the pass catcher position, this move could be huge for their offensive production. At 7, we've got another wide receiver. 3 guys so far taken in the top 7. Jalen Waddle out of Alabama. We've both talked about it. He could be the best wide receiver in this class, and I think Detroit gets a steal here at number 7 after that Matt Stafford trade.
He combines that athleticism, that speed with route running, which is really why we like him. He could be one of the best because he's already pretty seasoned in his route running, and he's got the athleticism that doesn't really need to be developed as much, maybe just harnessed
Yes.
Into running even more crisp routes and running those shorter routes, and his run after catch is very good. I really like Jalen Waddle, especially for the Lions, and a big team need for them is receiver, as they have Marvin Jones and Kenny Golladay free agents right here, and
that's a
they're
huge
low.
deal.
They're low on cash, so it would be nice for them to get a piece that could instantly impact their passing game. Jared Goff would have someone to throw to.
Right, and I think that even if Jared Goff isn't your long-term solution, just getting Jalen Waddle on the field and developing before you bring in that next true franchise quarterback is huge. The way this guy comes out of his breaks, how fast he is, and how little of momentum he loses when he cuts and turns the complete opposite direction is astounding to me. He's one of the most elite athletes in this draft class, and I think that any team that lands Jalen Waddle needs to find the best way to get this guy the ball because he is a playmaker. At number 8, we've got the Carolina Panthers taking Micah Parsons, the off-ball linebacker for Penn State, and I think finally there was a lot of speculation last season about Isaiah Simmons being a Carolina Panther. They ended up passing on him and moving for Derek Brown. But I think they finally get their Luke Kuechly replacement here, the guy who can really command that defense and be the signal caller for that unit, and the guy who is just a downhill thumper, but can also cover the pass as well.
I don't even knock them for taking Derek Brown because he's been very, very good for them.
Oh, yeah.
Isaiah Simmons is very, very good, but he hasn't really been getting a lot of opportunities. I think if he did go to the Panthers, he would have turned out how I think Micah Parsons is going to turn out for them.
Yes.
And he's going to be a big piece. He's going to be kind of that Luke Kuechly replacement. Yeah. He can cover receivers, he can cover tight ends, and he can stop the run game as well.
Yes.
He's going to be, I believe he's going to be one of those middle linebackers that we see for a long, long time.
Yeah, we're seeing middle linebackers that are just next level coming every year now. I mean, Devin Bush was on fire before he had that season-ending injury this season. Devin White, that guy can fly, and he hits hard. So these last couple of draft classes filled with great linebacker talents. Yeah. Number 9 here, we've got Caleb Farley of Virginia Tech heading to the Denver Broncos. This is our first DB off the board. Caleb Farley fills a big need for this team. Obviously, Vic Fangio, a defensive-minded head coach, he really hasn't been given that many cards to play with in Denver. No. Their drafts have not been very good in terms of team building. They've got some really good talent on the roster, but they spent 2 picks last year, their top 2 picks going for wide receivers when they already had Cortland Sutton. They've got Drew Lock, but as much as we like Drew Lock and we're fans of him at Mizzou, he just hasn't quite shown the maturity and the poise in the NFL to be a winning quarterback. You know, the no-fly zone in Denver is long gone. Chris Harris, Aqib Talib, they're all out of there. They need someone else on that back end to help out Justin Simmons at safety, and we think that first tier of shutdown corners in this draft is capped off by Caleb Farley.
Yeah, I think it'd be a really good fit there. Clearly, corners, their biggest need. He's a very solid corner. He's going to be an instant impact.
Oh, yeah. He'll be a day one starter.
I like corners in the first round. They're usually going to, they're going to make an impact right away, and it's not a waste taking a great corner this early.
Right, 100%. Back-to-back corners here. Dallas Cowboys at number 10. We've got them going Patrick Surtain II out of Alabama. This is another very closely behind Caleb Farley is our number 2 corner in this draft class. I think Dallas, they need help on the defensive side of the ball bad. They're loaded on offense. Dak Prescott, if he comes back healthy, they're sitting great there. I truly believe that Dak is a franchise quarterback. They need to keep him around. They're awesome at wide receiver. Zeke at running back. I like Tony Pollard as well. And their tight end position is manageable with Dalton Schultz and whatnot, but they need help on the back end. Trayvon Diggs was a ball hawk last year. Pair him with his former teammate and go get some plays down the field.
Yeah, I really like it. They need that extra corner. Their defense has not been very good in pass coverage. It's because it's because of that, the lack of depth at corner. He could develop into a very, very good corner in this league, and I really like Diggs too. So it could be a nice combo for a team that I feel like they have the pieces and they just can't put it together. So it would be a really nice improvement to their secondary.
And him and Diggs bring a physicality to that secondary that I think few teams have.
Yep.
That would be a big addition for this team. At number 11, we've got the New York Football Giants picking Gregory Rousseau, the edge out of Miami. Sat out this season, but he was a menace when he was on the field earlier on in his college career. This is the biggest and potentially most talented edge rusher that this team has had since Michael Strahan. I don't necessarily think he's going to get to the heights of Michael Strahan, but this could be a big deal for a football team that is really piecing together right now. They're slowly and surely they're getting to where they need to go, but there are pieces missing on this team. I would love to see them take a receiver, so in a future mock draft, that could be a position of need that we address. But for now, I think a pass rusher is on the table for the Giants.
Yeah, I think their defense has that run stop, but I think they need that extra dimension of getting to the QB. That makes their defense pretty potent. It makes it a very helpful thing for their offense with Daniel Jones trying to get something going, because when he was in, he wasn't that bad. He gave them chances to win the game.
And he didn't have a star running back this year, which is a big deal. That matters for a young quarterback.
And especially with the Giants offense doing so much check down kind of stuff, they need that multi-dimensional running back to throw to and hand the ball off to. So if they get this, who seems to be premier, if he comes into the league, premier pass rusher.
If there is a premier pass rusher in this draft,
this is the guy.
I think that this might be our top option there. Yeah, this is a big draft for the Giants. They need to hit a home run in the first round.
Yep.
Number 12, we've got the San Francisco 49ers selecting J.C. Horn, the cornerback out of South Carolina. This is kind of a luxury pick, if we're being honest, for the 49ers. That defense is very stacked. They are great in the front seven. I mean, the list goes on and on of names they have up there. They just picked Javon Kinlaw last year, which seemed like another luxury pick. But Sherman's getting old. I believe he's a free agent. I'll have to check that. But I assume they'd bring him back. Jason Verrett is also a veteran guy who was brought in on a one-year contract last offseason. Bring those guys back. Have them mentor J.C. Horn. And this guy's very talented. I think he could turn into a very productive player for that defense.
Again, I really like taking a corner in the first round. It's a big position when you're covering such great receivers that are drafted every year. Like we see these first, we picked 3 in the top 10 right here. So
like
you're seeing corners go that you may think, oh, wow, a corner shouldn't go this high. But when they're that important, covering such great athletes, you need to get corners that you can develop and plug in right away, and they're going to make an impact.
All right, then at number 13, I think this is one of my personal favorite under-the-radar picks for this draft class. The Los Angeles Chargers, we've got them going out and picking up Christian Darrisaw, the offensive tackle for Virginia Tech. And for a roster that is, to be honest, the Chargers are quite loaded at almost every position. This is one of their biggest team needs. It's not a flashy pick, but Justin Herbert and that run game need some significant help on the offensive line. Justin Herbert, obviously, he needs some blindside protection. And Austin Eckler or whoever that lead back is for the Chargers next season, they need some help in the run game because they were one of the worst run blocking efficiency teams in the NFL last season. So Christian Darrisaw, who is a massive human being, I think he can go out there and just be a force to be reckoned with. This guy could be a huge asset for the Chargers and a guy who is that franchise left tackle for this football team.
Yeah, again, tackle, big thing. Tackle and corner are big things to take in the first round. They're bigger impact than people think.
It's harder to find a guy at that position who is developed and sound at their technique.
Yep.
And has the athletic intangibles after the first couple rounds.
Yep, so you have to take advantage of getting a guy like Christian Darrisaw. He's got the size, he's got the athleticism, and the technique is a big deal. So I think that's a big piece for the Chargers, helping out a pretty decent offense already. So could be a big deal for them.
Right. They don't really need any skill positions. They've got Mike Williams if they choose to re-sign him. Keenan Allen's locked up. And then they've got Eckler in the backfield locked up. Hunter Henry. Those guys are good to go on that side of the ball. But otherwise, here we go. Number 14, the Minnesota Vikings taking Kwity Paye, edge rusher out of Michigan. Kwity Paye was absolutely electric with the film that we watched. He was so good with his hands, and his pass rush moves, were exceptional. This guy found a way to beat offensive tackles at every level of competition he's played, and he got after the quarterback, forced fumbles on his sacks. This is a impact playmaker, and the Vikings, obviously being without Danielle Hunter last season, struggled with the pass rush. This guy on the other side could be a huge addition and fill that void that they were looking to with Yannick Ngakoue, but that was a failed experiment.
He's got that strength. They really, really need it.
Yes.
They need a rusher. A lot of teams do, and they're one of them that their defense really struggled without that pressure on the QB because their secondary wasn't strong enough to hold up. So I think it's a very good addition for the Vikings.
Yeah, this could be a big pickup for Minnesota. At number 15, we've got Justin Fields out of Ohio State. I think for a lot of people out there watching this, you're probably thinking, wow, he fell quite far down your board, but we don't think that. I mean, I guess let me rephrase that. I think a team will trade up, and we don't have trades in this mock draft if you haven't figured that out already. Justin Fields, I think, will be traded up for and selected in the top 10. It's highly unlikely that teams let quarterbacks fall down their board this far. I mean, I think that he's better than Dwayne Haskins, and Dwayne Haskins fell to 15 to the Washington football team in his draft class. But I think that if there was a team that I would like to see pick up Justin Fields, it would be the New England Patriots. Obviously, they experimented with Cam Newton this past season, but Cam, I hate to say it, he used to be so fun to watch.
He's a shell of himself.
He's kind of washed up. His throwing motion is really wonky right now, and he's just not an accurate passer. He had more picks than touchdowns through the air this year, which is just embarrassing. He had 8 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. But Justin Fields is a much younger version of Cam. Maybe not quite as good as a rusher or an athlete, but I think his arm talent is better, and that's what's important, obviously. I think Belichick, they don't have too many weapons there. They need a guy who can get out of the pocket and make plays on his own, and that's a huge thing for me here.
I think Belichick may be able to develop him. We're not really sure yet, but he does look down his receivers what we've seen. I'm curious to see how he will translate to the NFL, but I don't think he is one of the best QBs in this class. I think that I could see him going to the Patriots and possibly developing with his elite athleticism. He just needs to put it together with some better decision-making.
Right. Yeah, I think his decision-making at times, especially against Indiana, if you guys go back and watch that game, he had 3 terrible picks that game, and there's just some troubling things that we've seen on tape from Justin Fields, but if he is able to find an offensive mind, and I think Josh McDaniels for the Pats could be that for him, he just needs some guidance in transitioning to the league. At number 16 here, we've got Jalen Phillips out of Miami. He was actually a transfer, and he had quite a darn good season. We've got him going to the Cardinals here at number 16, and this is a guy who I think has a lot of talent. He was a former number 1 overall recruit out of high school and a 5-star player. Ended up transferring, kind of filled the Gregory Rousseau hole for that Miami football team. And he was a menace in the run game, and he was quite good as a pass rusher. I think my one knock on him is at times he did appear to be a bit nosy, and I think that in running situations that could set up huge cutback lanes, but the plays he did make made a huge difference, and he was able to make some very, very impactful tackles for loss and strip sacks.
Yeah, I think he needs to be a little more obedient. He needs to stay back a little more, hold his blocks, and read a little more than just going in. But on passing downs, he should be a guy that puts a lot of pressure on the QB. He's got that athleticism. He's pretty big. And he could almost be what Epinesa was meant to be with that pass rushing ability, but he could end up being a run stopper if he does learn how to be a little more careful with getting upfield.
Yeah, one more thing I'd say about him, he has a bit of a boisterous personality. He is very loud. He likes to talk. That's all right, though. I think he could add some juice to that Cardinals defense. I think they probably need it. Chandler Jones, their best pass rusher right now, had season-ending injury last year. They need someone else to help him out. He's getting a bit old. They need someone to transition in, develop underneath them. So I think Jalen Phillips, he might be a little bit of a project in both his mental and physical aspects of the game, but this is a guy who has a pretty good ceiling and could turn out to be a very, very good player. At number 17 here, this one's a mouthful. We've got John Gruden and the Las Vegas Raiders selecting Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, the linebacker out of Notre Dame. I think that he definitely. I'm not sure if I said his name right. I'll be honest.
No, but I mean that's good.
I think I actually I spent so much of my energy focusing in on his name that I said Notre Dame as if I was from France instead of Notre Dame.
That's how I would say it.
So, anyways, this guy, to me, he perfectly fits John Gruden style football. He is a downhill thumper. He is explosive. He makes plays. He almost reminds me of that style of guy that him and Mike Mayock are trying to pick, like a Jonathan Abram. They want the guy who's going to play tough, hard-nosed football. This is what he does. This guy flew through gaps. He was excellent on the blitz. He was great running downhill and just throwing everything he has at running backs. And he actually had the better part of some pretty impressive guys like Travis Etienne. So I would say my one knock on him, sometimes he resorts to just throwing a shoulder, and he just kind of flings his body at the defender. So tackling could be an issue at the NFL level for him, but this guy physically, he's got it all.
Yeah, I agree with that. He's one of those prototype kind of guys like Abrams. He's going to have that athleticism. He's going to have that pop. But can he stay out of trouble from penalties in the NFL? They are the most penalized team, I believe, in the entire league.
I believe they were.
And I'm hoping that he can harness his ability and use it in the correct ways in the NFL, because he is very talented and he has a lot of good assets for the NFL.
Yes, I think he's also very tall. What he kind of reminded both of us of was a Darius Leonard, because he could also cover a little bit. This guy is a very dynamic player, and I think if he puts it all together, he could be a very, very productive player at the next level, and regardless of where he lands. Number 18 here, this is another really, really important just piece to building a football team. We've got Elijah Vera Tucker, the O-lineman out of USC, heading to Miami to play for the Dolphins. Tua Tagovailoa is a pocket passer. We saw him try and run the ball a little bit last season, but I think that was more of a product of he was not seeing guys open and getting the space he wanted, so he tucked it and ran it instead of trying to make a bad decision. But he needs someone who can protect him in that pocket. They also need someone to try and ramp up that run game a little bit. This overall, I think, is just a great pick for this football team. I think he can play either the outside tackle position or an interior guard position. He's very versatile, and I think that regardless of where he would be played at, he could be a huge addition to the Dolphins team.
Yeah, those are two needs for the team. You got to protect that young quarterback. It's a big deal, and he can do most of it. You kind of can talk about Elkin Jenkins for the Packers.
My Packers, he's been excellent.
If they're playing at guard and tackle, they can kind of synergize with their teammates and understand maybe they have to move around a little more in a certain blocking scheme, because they know what's going to happen. If their guard is doing a certain type of block, there may be down blocking. He may need to do something else because he has played guard and tackle. So he looks good in both, and those are both team needs for the Dolphins. So I think it's a very quality pick for the Dolphins here.
100% agree. At number 19, we've got Washington, the Washington football team. Wonder if they'll actually, you think they'll get a name or not?
I hope so. For the sake of Trey, if he goes there.
For the sake of their fans and the NFL world, I hope they get a mascot and do not say the Washington football team, but it's not a bad look. Their logo isn't terrible.
No, I like their color scheme, so they can get away with it.
Yeah, anyways, we've got Trey Lance out of NDSU heading over to the Washington football team. Obviously, I think a lot of people, there are question marks about Trey Lance and who he is as a player because he had limited playing time at North Dakota State. He has not much tape on film. He's a very good runner, and from what I've seen, his deep ball is pretty good as well. He's a good athlete. I think he's exactly what Washington needs. I don't think right now they're going to go anywhere with the guys they have at the quarterback position. Taylor Heineke, probably not going to get it done, although he did give good old Thomas Brady a run for his money.
Yep.
And Alex Smith, I love him. Great comeback story, but Alex Smith, he seems, the calf keeps getting injured. He's having struggles right now. He's an older quarterback. He's a great guy that could mentor Trey Lance, but I think they need a talented player who they can develop and mature as a player and help that team win football games.
Washington needs a playmaker. It was kind of like the RG3 when he came in. He can run and he can pass deep to pretty decent receiving core. They've got Terry McLaurin. I think they could use one more piece. Their next guy is Sims there. So
yeah, and Logan Thomas was not really anything his
decent.
whole career. Came in and had over 110 targets, I think. So
yeah, so I think he could run that offense and kind of revive it and give that defense some more rest and
that
possibly
defense is very
make
good.
that Washington football team a contender.
They could. I mean, right now, looking at the NFC East, I think if these guys get themselves a solid quarterback that they believe in, they might just be the best team in that division. Obviously, Carson Wentz might be on the move right now. Dak Prescott's injured, and that team doesn't have a defense. New York, they've got their own struggles. This division, is a toss-up every single year. At number 20, your Chicago Bears. I'll let you talk about this one. Sam Cosmi out of Texas, offensive lineman. Tell me your thoughts here with this pick.
Big need for the Bears. Bobby Massey is an older tackle. He's right tackle for us. He was okay last season. This season he got injured. We had a lot of injuries on the line. We had Mustafer in at center, which was okay, and it's nice. I think that we will probably stick with him and save some money or possibly draft an interior guy later, but tackle is the big need. Leno's on the other side. He's okay. We drafted him a little bit ago, and he's doing all right, but Massey has been struggling, so we need to get a young tackle and fill that team need. I've really liked what I've seen from him. He's very strong. He could be a little faster. His athleticism is okay, but he's got the size, and I think he could be a very good development piece.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very good pick for the Bears here at 20.
I think Sam Cosmi could be one of those offensive linemen where they're drafted, and then 3 or 4 years later, you're like, holy cow, this guy is good. He has the technicality to be a very sound player in this league. Like Eric said, I think athletically, he's probably not the best prospect. Obviously, after what we've seen from Darisaw and Penei Sewell and Slater at the top of the draft board, but this is a guy, he's not crazy fast off the ball, but his technique is good. He doesn't get beaten that often, and I think he's a guy who could see a very long NFL career. And for a team who's been pivoting back and forth, let's be honest, between quarterbacks, if you put a guy in like Nick Foles, he needs a good offensive line and pass protection. Sam Cosmi could be a guy that gives him a lot of help off that edge. But like I said, or like we both kind of agreed on, him not getting off the ball super fast could cause him trouble against some really fast speed rushers off the edge. At number 21, this is a bit of an interesting pick for us. We think this is a reach, if we're being completely honest. But based on the information we currently have, the Indianapolis Colts need a quarterback. And Mac Jones, in our opinion, we've already had 4 go off the board. He's the 5th best guy out here for them. I think they have to make this pick. The Colts have to be in the quarterback market in some facet this offseason. Jacoby Brissett, they experimented with it already. They have told us he's not our guy. They went out and got Phil Rivers this year to try and make a run. They need a guy who is just going to do his job and not make mistakes. And I think that's what Mac Jones is. We didn't see him have to do anything exceptional at Alabama. His receivers were off the charts, and he had wide-open guys streaming downfield almost regularly. He doesn't necessarily have elite athleticism, but what he's good at is making the read and finding the opening receiver. And that's going to be key in the NFL, but I think we're going to have to see a little bit more out of him if the Colts were to make this decision. I think they have to go out and address the wide receiver position and get him another weapon later on in the draft.
Yeah, he's a ball distributor. I think if he does, he can scramble a little bit. He can run out of the pocket and make clean throws. His deep ball is pretty nice. Yeah. Clearly, he was throwing deep a lot to Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle.
That's his highlight tape.
Yeah, his whole if you look up his highlight tape, it's literally just him throwing down the field the whole time because they're wide open every time. Which crazy. I would like to see him throwing more in routes, more out routes, closer routes, curl routes, and some flares to his running back. But in the NFL, I think he can be developed. I think Frank Reich would be able to work with him very well. He was a former QB, I believe, for the Colts, was he not?
I think he was in the division.
Yeah.
I'll say that. He was in the division, and he made one of the best comebacks in playoff history.
Frank Reich was I believe was a QB, and
I think it was the Oilers. It was the Houston Oilers. I think,
I think that the Colts are a good team for a young quarterback to develop, especially one without all of that crazy athleticism, because they have a great line already. They could use maybe one more piece on their line. It's pretty dang solid.
Yeah.
And they've got T.Y. Hilton still. He's a free agent, but
they have the money if they want him.
I don't see them letting him go as he's been a franchise guy.
If they're interested in him, they have plenty of cap to retain him.
I think they need to get one more receiver for him. I think he needs to have some really nice receivers that can get some separation. I don't know how great his throw in traffic or his throw with tight coverage is, but I think it's a good pick here for the Colts. I'd really like to see them get a young QB. Opposed to Kyle Trask, I just think Mac Jones is just a better option for a team that has a pretty good defense, and they just really need to roll and run and throw occasionally to those good receivers.
Yeah, I think especially in the next week here after hearing that Carson Wentz news, the Colts are a fascinating team to talk about. They could have Carson Wentz, you never know, and obviously Carson Wentz played his greatest season with Frank Reich as his OC. So, there's a chance that next week when we do our mock draft 2.0, Mac Jones is in the first round, because I truly think that if he's going in the first round, it's to the Colts and no one else. He is going to go to a QB-needed team, and I think he is the 5th or 6th ranked quarterback prospect. So if we see Wentz on the Colts, then we have a whole nother discussion, and maybe we send a tackle the way of the Colts after Anthony Costanzo retired. So it's a lot of moving pieces with the Colts. I think Mac Jones fits in well. They've got JT. They can set up play-action games because of how good that running offense is. There's just a lot of things to talk about with the Colts. At number 22, we've got the Tennessee Titans selecting Darion Kendrick, cornerback out of Clemson. Darion Kendrick is a very talented player. He plays big, although he is small in stature. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Denzel Ward just because of how athletic and quick he is, but his size is obviously a bit underwhelming. I think he could be a guy, though, who plays a really nice slot corner role for this team. He played outside in college, which is nice, but I think that might be where his size is more utilized in the NFL. But the Titans, let's be honest, their pass coverage, their whole defense in general needs a bit of a revamp. They're a little bit behind the 8 ball there. They looked for a pass rusher in Jadeveon Clowney, so that's another area they could look for, but the back end got burnt a lot last season, so I think they need to address that first.
Yeah, I think secondary is one of the biggest things they need to fix up. I believe Jayon Brown, their middle linebacker, is a free agent as well. So middle linebacker is an issue, and their D-line is still decent, but they need a pass rusher as well. But corner would help them out in the long run. I think he could be developed into a very solid corner. Again, slot is still very helpful, especially with the slot position becoming more diverse with any receiver can basically, even a guy that we're going to talk about later who doesn't even play receiver can play in the slot all day and have a lot of success.
Yeah. At number 23 here, we've got Travis Etienne, the running back out of Clemson. First running back off the board here, and this might actually be a bit early. You never know. I think that Travis Etienne and the other running backs in this class are not quite as deep as we've seen in past years, but Travis Etienne is a guy who has a crazy high ceiling for what he can be as a running back. I think the Jets, well, I know they need a running back because Ty Johnson isn't cutting it anymore. Frank Gore is a fossil at this point, and they need someone to play the position for him. Getting a guy dynamic like Travis Etienne, if they choose to stick with Sam Darnold, could be huge for this football team. They need a guy who can check down, a guy who can get yards after catch, and just make plays. Make it easier on your quarterback. Finally help this guy develop. Travis Etienne is the first step to doing so after acquiring some more pass blocking for him, and hopefully seeing Denzel Mims develop a little bit more in year 2.
Yeah, I really like them getting that athletic, very diverse, I guess you could say, running back. He can run and catch, and that's a big thing for an offense that needs a little bit of an oomph. They've got some pieces, but they need to put it all together and really get their offense going because it's been struggling, and they haven't had a real running back in a long time. So I'd really like to see them get a guy that could instantly impact their offense and help them out in the future.
Right, and I think one quick note here about the Jets before we move on is that Robert Saleh, their new head coach, comes from the Kyle Shanahan offense. Well, he was the D coordinator, but he comes from San Francisco that ran Shanahan's offense. We don't know what type of offense he'll be bringing with him to New York, but we know how much of a staple the run game is in San Fran. So getting a running back of this caliber could be a huge deal to that football team. Back-to-back picks here at number 24. We've got the Pittsburgh Steelers picking up Najee Harris out of Alabama. And in terms of fantasy, obviously, because that's what we primarily do here on the SFS channel, Najee Harris is our RB1 for rookie fantasy football. We think that he for a big man is a great receiver. He is very dynamic. He's a bit elusive and can make guys miss as well as run them over. I think he fits best with the Steelers here because of that downhill running. I think Pittsburgh wants to increase their physicality. They've gotten a bit gadgety and a bit kind of a finesse team as of late. I think they want to get back to running the football. Their rushing offense was terrible this past season. Najee Harris is a good fresh start with the running back position.
I think he'll fit the mold much better than James Conner did.
He's a free agent.
And, yep, he's going to be heading out. So they're finally going to get a guy that can do not Le'Veon Bell type things particularly, but
Le'Veon Bell was a power back coming out of college at Michigan State. So you never know.
Someone who's going to give their offense character. He's going to be the one that people talk about when you're talking about the Pittsburgh offense. If he goes there, I think he will be one of the better running backs in this draft. I think he'll be an instant impact wherever he goes.
I think you talked about it perfectly. They want a guy. I think Najee Harris, what he gives this football team, like you said, the heart and soul of the football team, the identity. I think he gives Pittsburgh the identity back of that tough, cold weather team that is just physical and will run you over for 60 full minutes. When you think about the identity of the Steelers in the past when they've been so good, Jerome the Bus Simpson, and you look back at Bettis. My goodness. And then Le'Veon Bell. They have great running backs. And then I forget who the running back was in 2010, the Super Bowl year, but he was pretty productive that season as well. And he's just really a guy who I think can make a big difference for this football team, and I would love to see Najee Harris play for the Steelers. At 25, we've got the Jacksonville Jaguars, second first-round pick of the 2021 season. They've got Kyle Pitts, or at least that's where we have them going here out of Florida. I think this really gives Trevor Lawrence the best opportunity to find success. Put weapons all over the field for him to use. Give him guys that he can get out in space and make plays for him and just help him develop. I think Kyle Pitts he plays like a receiver. Mm-hmm. He's very, very good in the red zone, and he's very good after the catch. So I think this is a great fit, and for a guy who uses tight ends in his offense at the college level, I think this can help us transition a little bit.
Yeah, there's not that many receivers left that are going to fit the Jags in that way. They already have the two with Chark and Laviska Shenault. So I think if they get a tight end that's dynamic like that, they can put him in the slot. They can have him on the line as well. I think it would just be a very good piece for a quarterback that is expected to run a great offense.
Yeah, I think he could be a huge contributor to that offense. At 26, we've got the Cleveland Browns addressing a huge need for them. Zaven Collins, a linebacker out of Tulsa. This guy flies around the football field. He makes big plays, and we've seen him be very good in coverage. Obviously, they lost their top two interior inside linebackers in the last two off seasons. Christian Kirksey headed over to Green Bay, and Joe Schobert headed over to Jacksonville.
Ice cream,
yeah. So Zaven Collins, their starter right now is B.J. Goodson, who was the second or third on the depth chart for the Green Bay Packers, so they almost traded starters. I think we know Green Bay got the better end of that deal, but B.J. Goodson's no scrub, but Zaven Collins, he has a much higher ceiling and has the potential to be a huge playmaker for that football team. And defensively, Cleveland was kind of a liability at times this season. We saw their back end get beat a lot, but their pass rush is good, and if they could have Zaven Collins help them covering the inside or the middle of the field and sending him on blitzes, he could be a big asset to that defense.
Yeah, I agree with that. He's a very good coverage linebacker, and he can also make tackles in the box. I I really like him. I think that he fits the Browns. I think even you just say the name, you think the Browns for sure. But I think that would be a very good pick for them. And their defense, they're scoring a lot. So if they can get someone that can solidify the defense, maybe a few more pieces, but someone who can lead it and help them out a lot.
Yeah, I think the Browns right now, their offense is scoring. It's humming. That rushing game is great. But the one thing that's holding this football team back is they want to slow down the pace of the game, maintain time of possession, and really wear the other team down. And it's hard to do so when their defense goes on the field and gives up a touchdown in 2 minutes. So addressing the defensive side of the ball in this draft is going to be key for Cleveland. Maybe, I know some Browns fans probably won't like to hear this, but maybe you flip Odell Beckham for some more draft capital because you did just fine without him. So go out and get yourself some more defensive pieces and help that unit strengthen in the 2021 season. At number 27 for the Baltimore Ravens, we've got them taking Azeez Ojulari, the edge out of Georgia. Azeez Ojulari, I think, fits the Baltimore mold pretty darn well here. I think that he is a very physical player and a guy who has an immense amount of strength for his size. I think Baltimore, Matthew Judon's getting a little bit older. They need someone else to help him out there. I know that they addressed it in last year's draft a little bit, or 2019's draft. But this is a football team. Their defense was supposed to be and expected to be better than it was this year. And I think that the Ravens kind of underachieved to an extent the last 2 seasons. They need someone who can make plays on the defensive side of the ball. And I think Ojulari does that for this team and gives them that next level of physicality and pass rush that they need to be competitors.
Yeah, I think it's important to get a guy like him because you lost to Darius Smith to the Packers, and he can be a run stopper and a pass rusher, kind of like Za'Darius. He could be a big piece on that defense that needs a little bit of help in the secondary. They've got some decent pieces in the secondary, but they need to get some pressure on the QB and close down on those tackles.
Yeah, Za'Darius Smith, the Ravens never really got to see what he truly could be because when he was in Baltimore, he was always playing underneath Terrell Suggs. And then Suggs departed for the Cardinals, he played for the Chiefs. He went to the Cardinals. He did. He was on 3 teams in one season because he went to the Cardinals, asked to be released, and then was signed by the Chiefs on their Super Bowl run, then retired. So Terrell Suggs, he left a hole on that defense. They haven't really quite been able to fill it. I think it's Azeez Ojulari. He fits the mold, and he could be that next physical outside edge for the Baltimore Ravens. At number 28 here, this is a pick I really like. Under the radar player, I would say, and probably not a very hyped up guy, is Nick Bolton out of Mizzou. The New Orleans Saints, let's be honest, guys, they're going to lose a lot of pieces this offseason. Drew Brees just had to take a massive salary hit, and he is probably not going to play if he's going to take that much of a discount. He went from $25 million down to the vet minimum, cut $24 million off of his salary, and is now down to $1 million, trying to help the Saints out a bit with their cap struggles. They are still, I believe, $70+ million in the hole, so they're going to have to move off some guys or convince some of their players to take some massive pay cuts. They need pieces that they are going to lose, and obviously for a team that just went all in for the last 3-4 years, they're going to be going into a bit of a rebuild. And Nick Bolton is a guy who at the inside linebacker position, he's very fast, he's very versatile and dynamic. I think that he can play both as a run stopper and a pass coverage guy. He did a lot of good things I saw on tape, but I think he's a bit of a project player, and for a team looking to rebuild, that might not be the worst thing.
No, I think they might lose some guys like Anzalone just because the pay is going to be an issue. So getting a linebacker that could be developed into one of their top linebackers that leads the team is a big deal. So I think it's a very good choice for them to bolster that defense that could potentially fall off of that run stop quota because they're really one of those run stopping teams. They may turn into a team that struggles on the defensive side and offensive side. We're going to see.
Right. Who knows? It might be Jameis, might be Taysom Hill. I don't think that the Saints will be in play for a quarterback this offseason. Demario Davis is another name at that linebacker position who's getting paid a lot of money right now. Yeah. They might move off of him. Quan Alexander might be an issue. They've got some guys in the back end There's a lot of question marks. Cam Jordan's getting a lot of money too, so a lot of question marks with the Saints. Who knows what's going to end up happening, but we do know they need to address defense, especially if they're going to have to make some tough decisions here this offseason. At the number 29 pick, my Green Bay Packers, they'll be taking Rondale Moore out of Purdue. And as a Packer fan, I like the pick. I think we need a wide receiver pretty bad. I think Rondale Moore is an explosive downfield playmaker. Obviously, he's a bit small, 5'9", 180 about is his heights and weights there. But I think this is a guy who can give Aaron Rodgers the dependability that he needs down the field. Devontae Adams can do the underneath dirty work on those quick slants and the in-breaking routes, post corners. But for a straight line speed guy, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, he's had flashes, but he has not been consistent enough to get the job done. I think that Moore could be a stud in the slot, maybe fill that Randall Cobb role that we've been missing for some years now since he kind of got out of his prime and left Green Bay. And I think Rondale Moore could be a big contributor to this football team.
Yeah, I think he's one of the most interesting receivers in this draft. And I think the Packers need that speed little guy. Honestly, they need a little guy. They have so many big receivers.
Yes, they are all tall.
And they need a Cobb. Like you said, he was very, very successful with the Packers. And he, even when he got the ball on other teams, was pretty good. So yeah. I think if they get a guy that can make moves with the ball, you can throw short to him as well as Adams. That gives that 1-2 punch with Aaron Rodgers throwing to him. I think that could be a very good combo.
100%. At number 30 here, we have got the Buffalo Bills taking a defensive back, Asante Samuel Jr. out of Florida State. Our reasoning behind this, we know the Bills probably need a pass rusher. They need to be able to more consistently get after the quarterback. But I think another key piece here is that after Tre'Davious White, they don't really have another star corner, and when you're playing in conference championship games like we expect them to be against the Kansas City Chiefs on a frequent basis, you are going to need other players who can cover down the field. I think Tre'Davious White is a stud, but can he really hang with Tyreek Hill down the field? I think that their safeties are also pretty darn good there in Buffalo, but they're getting a bit older now, so I think it's time to start preparing and getting some young youth and talent into that secondary. I think Asante Samuel, he's pretty darn athletic and has the requisite tools to be a star in the NFL.
Yeah, I think, again, corner first round. He's got that, I guess, translation to the NFL. He's got pretty good size for such a fast guy. I think he would be a very good piece for a team that is in need of some defensive help in the secondary, as well as some help if their pass rush isn't on par.
Exactly. At number 31 here, so this video will be coming out the morning after the Super Bowl, but we are just going to assume that Tampa Bay has the 31st pick here. So with that pick, a bit of a luxury selection here like we've seen a couple times earlier on in this draft. Carlos Basham Jr. out of Wake Forest. He is going to be going to Tampa. Obviously, they've got Jason Pierre-Paul, Shaq Barrett coming off the edge already. But I think those guys, Jason Pierre-Paul at least, he's getting older. Shaq Barrett, who knows the cap situation, if he'll be back next year. I think Basham is that big physical guy who can versatilely play the run and passing downs. I think he helps that Tampa Bay team, and a team that I think we'll see be right in the middle of the competition next year as well.
Yeah, I think it's just a good addition to an already good defense. Their offense is also very good.
Yeah, no kidding.
So I don't think it's worth them taking a receiver here. It possibly, maybe in the second round, they take a receiver if they don't get Godwin back.
I'd be shocked if that didn't happen, though.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I think they could do a lot of stuff here, like you said. Kind of a luxury pick.
Right. And then at number 32, our projected Super Bowl champions, we have got the Kansas City Chiefs taking Wyatt Davis out of Ohio State. And this is a big boy. Wyatt Davis can move some people out of the way. I think that the Chiefs, their O-line is definitely by no stretch under or below average or not good, but I think they could use some more help. You never know. Patrick Mahomes has been throwing the ball an awful lot. Maybe they want to lean on the run game some more next season. Or maybe they just want to be able to help out some contracts, get a cheap and young talent in there, because let's face it, they've got a lot of talented players in that team. They have to pay those guys a lot of money. So Wyatt Davis, I think he comes in. He's probably one of the more talented, or at least has the best prospect profile at the guard position. But due to the other skill players we see in this draft, he might fall down boards a little bit. I think he'd be a great asset to the Chiefs at number 32.
Yeah, again, a pick that's going to help out the team overall. He can develop into a very good lineman. And if anything, if they don't need him, they can trade him and get some more pieces for their defense in the future, because I think their defense will be what is needing help more in the future. But if they can get a guy to bolster that line for potentially the best QB in the league, at least for fantasy in our eyes, you got to give him another piece there, because it's not like he's untouchable, but it seems like he is sometimes. But I think it's good to get a young talent on the O-line. And like you said, sometimes they emerge 3 years later and they become superstars.
That was our first official 2021 NFL mock draft. If you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel and turn the bell on so you guys are notified whenever we come out with a new episode or any sort of content for you guys. And also, if you guys are looking for some exclusive SFS content, head down to the link that we've got here in the video, and that can be found in the description. So thank you guys again so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace out.